For years, experts have predicted that the battles of the future will be fought not by men and women, but by machines. Entire armies of drones, robots, and unmanned vehicles will wage war, while the human operators remain in relative safety, miles behind the battlefield. In Ukraine, we're already getting a glimpse of these science fiction-style scenes. Up and down the front lines, Russian assault squads are rushing into battle, expecting to find Ukrainian soldiers standing in their way. But what's waiting for them instead is something far worse. Enemies made not of flesh and bone, but cold, hard steel. This is Ukraine's robot army, and it's getting bigger, stronger, and smarter with every passing day. While the idea of military robots feels like something from the future, it's a concept that's actually been around for more than a century. Back in 1915, for example, France created the world's first explosive robotic drone prototypes, putting 20 of them into service with the Second French Army. In the 1930s, the USSR got to work on the Teletank, a remotely operated tank armed with its own machine gun. These early examples of uncrewed ground vehicles, UGVs, or armored robots were deployed in both the Winter War between the USSR and Finland and the early stages of the German-Soviet War in 1941. Around the same time, the United Kingdom also created its own radio-controlled infantry tank, codenamed the Black Prince, and other armed forces throughout history have explored the idea of constructing armored military vehicles that can operate without any human pilot or crew on board. But more often than not, over the decades, these projects have proven too costly or complicated for countries to pursue. Until now. Today's technological advancements have made it much more feasible for militaries to make and deploy armored robots en masse, and Ukraine is leading the way. Back when the war kicked off, UGVs, or ground robotic complexes, as they're known in Ukraine, started to be seen in small numbers. Many of those early models were imported from other countries, but Ukraine's top military minds soon saw how valuable they could be in the battle with Russia and tasked their own teams with developing some domestic models. Fast forward a few years and Ukraine now produces almost all of its own UGVs. In fact, a Jamestown report found that 99% of all armored robots used by the Ukrainian military are also produced in Ukraine. And production has scaled up incredibly quickly. In 2024, for example, Ukraine had just a few hundred of these robots to call on. For 2025, it set a production target of 15,000. That increased to 20,000 in 2026. And it's not just a question of quantity, but variety too. In the early stages of the war, Ukraine had only a handful of different robots to use, each with its own technical specifications, strengths, weaknesses, and ideal use cases. These days, there are more than 200 models produced by around 40 different Ukrainian manufacturers. That's invaluable, as it gives the Ukrainian military so many more options to call on for diverse missions, conditions, and tasks. Some may be better suited than others at holding down fortified locations, for example, and we'll explore an example of that later on, while others are better when it comes to tasks like scanning, scouting, and surveillance. The bigger and more diverse this robot army becomes, the more Ukraine will be able to lean on its UGVs to get things done and hold the line in the fight with Russia. That should in turn help to minimize the number of needless casualties, preserving Ukraine's personnel for other objectives or bigger battles yet to come. There are three reasons why Ukraine's rise of the robots has been so swift. First, this country doesn't dawdle when it comes to military development. It doesn't have that luxury. It's stuck in the middle of a dynamic, rapidly evolving conflict, and it needs all the help it can get as soon as it possibly can. While other countries may be able to spend weeks or months laying the groundwork for their next military innovations, followed by years of prototyping and fine-tuning their designs, Ukraine needs its defense companies and contractors to deliver results rapidly. We've seen this elsewhere. Ukraine's drone manufacturers, for example, regularly release new models and designs. The country has also fast-tracked the development of new missiles and air defense systems. Not all of them work as intended, and some could undoubtedly use a little more time in development. But some have proven highly effective, and by eliminating the red tape that usually delays and disrupts these kinds of projects, Ukraine has been able to equip its armed forces with better, stronger weapons as the war has progressed. The second reason can be summed up in a single word: cooperation. In many militaries around the world, there's a clear separation between defense contractors and frontline troops, with contractors having certain ideas in mind that sometimes simply don't align with the hopes and expectations of real soldiers on the ground. This in turn can lead to situations where companies create new weapons, vehicles, or equipment which actually hinder troops more than they help them. Ukraine does things differently. It bridges the gap between makers and soldiers, encouraging troops to share their thoughts, feedback, and ideas directly with defense companies, letting them know exactly what they need. From there, it's up to the companies to craft products that meet those needs. By incorporating real soldier feedback into their design decisions, they can roll out weapons and systems that are much more likely to get results in real-world combat conditions, rather than simply looking good in showrooms and tech demos. As Maxim Vasilchenko, co-owner and CEO of robotics contractor Tencor, puts it, Ukraine operates in wartime R&D mode, with direct feedback from the front lines, no bureaucracy, and a focus on what works. Decisions that take months elsewhere happen in days here. Additionally, the government, volunteers, and private sector collaborate closely, and the end users, soldiers, are also involved from day one. Again, this same philosophy has been seen elsewhere, like in the Ukrainian drone industry, where manufacturers are always in touch with squadrons of soldiers to understand what they need and what improvements or modifications they'd like to see on existing designs. The third and final reason behind Ukraine's rapidly evolving robot army is, quite simply, that robots aren't actually that difficult to make, at least not compared to other kinds of military vehicles. Compared to big tanks and troop carriers, for example, which need to be a certain size to accommodate crew members and supplies, armored robots tend to have much more compact designs. They don't need crew quarters and cockpits, which saves a lot of space and makes design and manufacture much simpler. Indeed, many of Ukraine's military robots measure up at about the same sizes as shopping carts or golf buggies, and they can be easily pieced together using simple commercial components with military weapons like 7.62mm or .5 cal machine guns added on top. Their price tags aren't prohibitive either. Some of these robots cost as little as $5,000, while others rise up into the tens of thousands. Even the most expensive models are nowhere near the 6- or 7-figure sums needed for tanks and high-end armored infantry vehicles. Through these measures of affordable, intelligent development, Ukraine is able to amass, expand, and diversify its robot forces at a rapid rate. Compare that to the US, and the differences are clear to see. Despite having the biggest military budget in the world by far, and a military force that far surpasses Ukraine or any other nation on Earth, the US has struggled when it comes to building any sort of serious robot force. Back in the 1980s, it tested a remotely operated vehicle called the Prowler, which was armed with machine guns. Later that decade, the tele-operated mobile anti-armor platform was also being tested, able to launch anti-tank missiles without the need for a human operator on board. Neither of these projects ended up going anywhere. In more recent times, the US developed the Special Weapons Observation Reconnaissance Detection System, SWORDS, armed robots, a few of which were deployed in Iraq in 2007 but didn't actually see combat. The Army ceased funding for the SWORDS program soon after that. The US military has still designed and developed an array of small robots, along with remotely operated weapon stations, but has struggled to combine these two concepts to create genuine uncrewed ground vehicles that are capable of confronting an enemy in combat. And even one of the latest programs, the US Army's Robotic Combat Vehicle program, was recently scrapped due to high costs, leaving US forces still struggling to get their hands on robots that are really ready to fight. Meanwhile, in Ukraine, robots are already fighting, and they're doing quite an amazing job of it too. But before we get to that, If this is the kind of insight you want more of, make sure you're subscribed to the Military Show. We break it down like this every week. Now, building a robot army is one thing, but actually putting it to good use is a whole other challenge entirely. This is still very new technology after all, and even Ukraine's military doesn't have much experience of working with it. Its soldiers have had to adapt on the fly, learning as they go and discovering the best ways to make the most of their new metal allies. But it hasn't taken them long to get some very impressive results. In 2024, we saw the very first video of an armed UGV leading a Ukrainian assault against Russian positions. Up to that point, UGVs had only really been used for kamikaze attacks or mine laying, but this proved that they could take on additional roles, battling not just alongside human soldiers, but leading the line ahead of them, attracting the enemy's attention, and paving the way for other troops to follow up behind. The robot in question was a Lyut 2.0 UGV, a 660-pound, 300-kilogram vehicle fitted with a PKT machine gun that can fire with excellent levels of accuracy at ranges of up to 2,625 feet or 800 meters. Protected by steel plate armor, the Lyut, like other Ukrainian armored robots, is tough enough to withstand small arms fire. At one point in the video, we even see it roll right over anti-tank mines which failed to detonate. We also see Russian troops launching what appears to be rocket-propelled grenades, RPGs, at the UGV, yet it remains operational even after suffering several hits and close calls. By the end of the video, Russian soldiers are seen fleeing from their trenches, running for their lives from a robot that appears almost impossible to stop, like a scene from a sci-fi movie. Since then, there have been numerous other recorded instances of Ukraine's robots fending off Russian assaults and fighting back against the Kremlin's war machine. In July 2025, for example, in a historic world-first feat, Ukraine's 3rd Brigade managed to capture Russian troops using an assault force made up solely of drones and robots. According to a detailed statement released at the time, the brigade made use of kamikaze drones and robotic ground vehicles to lay waste to a series of Russian bunkers in the Kharkiv region of northeastern Ukraine. Just as another robot was gearing up to take out another damaged Russian fortification, the remaining Russian soldiers hiding inside realized they had only two options: death or surrender. Taking their chances, they came out with their hands up, at which point they were promptly escorted out of the combat zone by drones and taken into custody by the Ukrainian military. This was a remarkable achievement. It was the first piece of clear, irrefutable proof that armored robots could carry out entire missions and achieve important objectives on their own with no risk of soldier casualties whatsoever. In November of 2025, we got another look at Ukraine's robots in action when a video was released showing a UGV firing on a Russian MT-LB personnel carrier. According to reports, Ukrainian troops were simply testing out their robot at the time, not far from the forward line, when it came across the Russian vehicle. Seizing the opportunity to see what the bot could do in genuine combat conditions, the UGV crew opened fire. The Russians seemingly had no idea what hit them. Only a month after that, more footage emerged, demonstrating the robot army's defensive capabilities. According to a detailed telegram statement from the Ukrainian 3rd Army Corps, a single uncrewed ground robot, droid TW-12.7, was able to hold a defensive position on its own for an astonishing 45 days straight. Equipped with a .5 cal machine gun, the UGV took up positions in deadly contested frontline territories, using its weapon to suppress Russian advances, while its operators remained safely behind the lines of engagement. For 45 days in a row, the ground robotic complex of the 3rd Assault Brigade went on combat duty and suppressed all enemy attempts to break into our sector with machine gun fire. Strike unit operators of the NC-13 controlled the dev droid TW-12.7 robot from a safe shelter. During the mission, the enemy failed to infiltrate or take our position, and the fighters held the lines with zero losses in manpower. The bot in question was created by the Ukrainian defense company DevDroid, which is one of the leading names in Ukrainian military robotics today. Boasting an operational range of up to 15 miles and advanced radio controls, combined with AI-powered automated navigation systems, the droid TW-12.7 is one of the company's crowning achievements and a shining jewel in the robot army. More recently, in January 2026, another droid, 12.7 UGV, was captured on camera engaging and eliminating Russian infantry with the aid of its onboard M2 Browning machine gun. This was believed to be the first ever recorded instance of a robot directly engaging in combat with enemy troops, and as the video shows, it wasn't exactly an even fight. Undeterred by the enemy's small arms fire, the bot was able to simply track, lock on, and rain down fire on the Russian combatants, wiping them out one by one. Later that same month, Ukraine's robot and dev droid enjoyed one of their biggest successes yet, when a reconnaissance strike ground robot managed to capture a trio of Russian soldiers during a combat operation. The incident reportedly occurred in the Lyman direction of the Donetsk region in eastern Ukraine. There, under the command of the 3rd Separate Assault Brigade, a dev droid TW-7.62, which was fitted with a KT-7.62 PKT machine gun, effectively forced the 3 Russians to wave the white flag. A video of the incident was shared online, showing the soldiers emerging from their hiding place among a section of smoking rubble, holding their arms up in a sign of surrender before disarming themselves and lying on the ground. DevDroid also wrote a report of exactly how the incident unfolded. Reconnaissance Impact NRC droid TW-7.62, based on the platform Numo, captured 3 Russian military. No risk for our fighters. Mission accomplished remotely. The stock exchange has been replenished. What modern warfare looks like. Work is on the front line. The people are being safe. TW Droid 7.62 is a reconnaissance strike NRC, which is adapted to the machine gun KT 7.62 PKT. Thanks to the built-in ballistic calculator, the complex provides high precision and fire efficiency when striking enemy targets. Droid TW-7.62 is equipped with artificial intelligence elements for autonomous detection, capture, and accompanying targets. Incidents like these are becoming increasingly common, and with Ukraine committed to expanding its drone army with tens of thousands more units in the months to come, we will inevitably see more and more instances of armored robots defending the front lines, carrying out assaults, capturing troops, and keeping the Russians at bay. As a result, the Kremlin's war machine, which is already struggling to make any kind of notable progress or gains along the front lines, will continue to struggle as it comes up against opponents that don't bleed, buckle, or back down, even under heavy fire. What's more, Ukraine's robots are only going to get stronger and more formidable from here. Plans are already in place for the newest models to come equipped with stronger, more destructive weaponry. DevDroid, for example, is hard at work on a new ground-based robotic combat system fitted with a 30mm cannon. Able to operate effectively at ranges of up to 3 miles or 5 kilometers, this new model will enjoy far superior capabilities compared to its predecessors. It will boast a bigger and heavier chassis that can cope with the recoil of such a heavy cannon, and could be used to provide direct fire support during offensive maneuvers or protecting infantry formations in high-threat environments. And this is just one example. Many of Ukraine's various other robotics companies are also working night and day to develop bots that are stronger, tougher, and increasingly advanced, ready to carry out a varied array of offensive and defensive operations on the battlefield, saving lives, eliminating enemies, and playing a bigger, broader role in the war. As they get stronger and more advanced, Ukraine's robots are setting a benchmark for other military forces around the world to learn from and attempt to emulate. And the country's robotic brands could enjoy enormous success, investment, and active interest once the war comes to an end, as various militaries seek to buy and use some of these robots themselves. In the meantime, as more of these robots roll out onto the front lines of locations like Donetsk and Luhansk, Ukraine's military will only get stronger, and its chances of success will only increase. Now, robots aren't the only element of modern conflict that Ukraine has managed to master. Watch this video for a detailed breakdown of how the country's forces have perfected the art of drone warfare. Alternatively, for a broader look at how the war is progressing and how other issues like broken logistics and collapsing morale are crippling the Kremlin's war machine without Ukraine having to fire a single shot, check out this video instead. And remember to subscribe to our channel if you haven't already, for more breaking military news and insightful reports on the Russia-Ukraine war and other big conflicts across the globe.